But it was a big identity shift because not only was I like letting go of dance slowly, I was also a mother. So that identity from I'm a mother now, and I am my identity is not so much a dancer. That was a transition for about 2 years of my schooling because osteopathy school is about 4.5 years long. So for about 2 years there, I was holding on to dancing. And then at one point, I just realized this is not possible. I can't wear all these hats and do these things well.
Welcome to Recast and Rise, the podcast for performers and creatives ready to explore what's next. You'll hear inspiring stories of artists who reinvented themselves and found new careers after the stage. Let's recast and rise. All right, Emily, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. You were and you are still a dancer. Now you are an osteopath. I want to hear all about your career transition and all that world. But first, tell us all about you and your background as a dancer.
Okay. Well, you and I met when we were in contemporary dance school in Montreal in 2005. We both graduated at that moment. And you've been in Vegas pretty much since then while I stayed in Montreal. Yeah, I've always been attracted to a lot of different dance styles, and dabbled in contemporary dance as well as b-girling and popping and other street styles. For me, the relationship to music has always been a passion for me, so I really connect with dances that are very musical, which sounds obvious, but in contemporary dance, it's actually not always given that relationship to music. I was always an independent artist. I worked with several companies, but always as a self-employed dancer. And I feel like I've always loved the student role for myself almost more than the performer role. The performer role is like the flower on the tree, but the work of learning the dances and practicing the dances was always more important to me. And I think maybe for that reason, it felt accessible to make a transition at some point in my career because I had been introduced to osteopathy back when we were in contemporary dance school. We had this amazing teacher, Paul Wagner, who had just become an osteopath. And I think he inspired a lot of us with his knowledge of anatomy, and he would treat us even before dance school. And I just really benefited from those treatments and felt like that was something I wanted to understand at some point in my life. So it had always been like in my mind for 20 years that this was something that I wanted to pursue eventually in my wiser version of myself, maybe.
I love that. And it's not related to career, but isn't it so amazing how teachers really impact who we become or where we want to go? And we don't really realize maybe in the moment when we meet them or when we encounter like that, when they cross our path. But wow, teachers can make such a difference. And it seems like that's what for you, like, wait, I think that may be something I want to do.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about, so you danced for many years. And
Mm-hmm.
then what kind of, and I'm sure we'll discuss all the different chapter, but you've danced for many years, and then one day you had to pull the plug in a way, and like, okay, I'm starting this osteopath path,
Mm-hmm.
the program. What happened? What made you take the leap?
Well, there was a lot of transitioning going on in my life at the time. I had a baby in 2019. And then, as we all know, in 2020, the world changed. So COVID happened.
Yeah.
So I had this 8-month-old baby at the time. And about 5 years prior to that, I would say that my major outlet for dance was my project with my husband, who's a musician. So we were touring together for about 5 years. He was playing music, singing, producing, and I was dancing on stage with him. His name is Phrase. And so we were like this little pocket of art that would travel together, and we just made it work. So when the pandemic happened and we had this baby who we were intending on bringing on tour with us around the world, I realized how our model was not very resilient financially. And
Right.
I felt like, I always had this little osteopathy in my back pocket as something I wanted to pursue. And I had thought maybe when my child's like 6 and is going to school, she was 8 months old. And I was like, I think this is my sign. This is the time that this needs to happen. So it was kind of imposed on me maybe a little earlier than I felt ready for, but at the same time, it was beautiful. But it was a big identity shift because not only was I like letting go of dance slowly, I was also a mother. So that identity from, I'm a mother now, and I am. My identity is not so much a dancer. That was a transition for about 2 years of my schooling because osteopathy school is about 4.5 years long. So for about 2 years there, I was holding on to dancing. And then at one point, I just realized this is not possible. I can't wear all these hats and do these things well. I was starting to,
Yeah.
go to shows, but not really having practiced enough or, just feeling like, okay, I'm not training enough to do this, or I want to be there more for my daughter, or I want to be studying more. So there's just not enough time in the day.
Yeah, it sounds like you had to look at all the things that you love and okay, something's got to give.
Yeah.
But at the same time, maybe and tell me if maybe that's not your experience, but it seems like you're still dancing. Yeah. So you still have that outlet with your husband where you're still very much a creative person.
I'm coming back in touch with that part of myself. So about 2 years into my osteopathic studies, I realized I could not practice dance anymore. There was no time in my day. And my husband was doing his own thing with another musician, and that was a great package. So I actually haven't been dancing for about 2 years. And I just graduated from osteopathy school in March, and I've decided to start teaching dance 1 day a week this fall. So starting next week, I'm giving a dance class, but that's going to be as much about me reteaching myself as it is about sharing my dance with other people. And I'm just
Yeah.
kind of starting to get back in touch with that part of myself, knowing it's not going to take up as much space as it did in the past. But I had an interesting opportunity in Canada. We have the Dancer Resource and Transition Center who funds dancers in transition. I feel like they'd be very interested in your podcast, probably.
Yes.
So I was lucky enough to get some funding through them during my studies, but you have to sign a document saying, I am no longer a performing artist if you want to receive the funding. So when I signed that document, that was a hard decision to make. And I mean, I could still perform, I just cannot receive money for performing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, it was a bit of a hard decision to make, but ultimately it really like affirms the decision to transition and take your new career seriously. Yeah, so that's my relationship to dance now, where I'm doing it for myself, I'm doing it to share, and that's all I need from it at the moment.
Yes, yeah. I love that you talked about your identity, and not only as a dancer, but as a mother and then a wife. And then you just relocated as well to a complete different life. So a lot of changes.
Mhm.
So do you feel like you're on the right path? You're obviously just graduated, so
Yeah,
congratulations.
thank you.
Um, how's how's that new career for you? How is it going?
It's so beautiful. I really appreciate, I guess, the intimacy of the contact with my patients. And just I felt like for 4 years, I was transforming my brain. You're laying down this knowledge and this new web of information. And at first, you're making like a kind of a matrix, I guess, or like a spider web. And then, like, slowly you're adding to that matrix and you kind of connecting with your past experiences. And now to have that matrix of knowledge and to be interfacing with patients is just, it's so beautiful. It's an investment that I'm really happy I made.
That's
But
great. I love that.
yeah, we
Um,
relocated so I was living in Montreal, and we've now relocated to the woods in Nelson, British Columbia, which
I
is in the
can see.
mountains. Yeah, you
It's
can kind of see the
beautiful.
mountains.
Oh, wow.
It's quite smoky right now because of forest fires. But yeah, I
Yes.
think osteopathy is the study of nature, really. It's science and nature. And for me, there was something in my heart that really needed to be more in touch with nature. And I felt like this practice would allow me to live that and live here.
Yes. Emily, you were a dancer.
Mhm.
What skills helped you transition from being a dancer, very successful one, very creative, to now being an osteopath? what skills did you have to master?
It was 4.5 years of intense skill building, like laying down that matrix was of knowledge was huge. It's kind of hard to describe the amount of labor that was involved in learning those very specific skills. I felt like being an artist, though, and being a dancer, maybe specifically, there's a certain discipline involved in it that lended itself well to that field of study that I chose. So I felt like, yeah, art and dance, the discipline involved was extremely beneficial for me to apply in this new chosen career.
During that transition, did you have fear or did you doubt that you were making the right decision to continue
Mm.
studying, or you were like, nope, I know I'm on the right path? Like, did you question that at any point?
I definitely had like that in my second year of school where I needed to decide to stop dancing. There was definitely an identity crisis for me because not only was my relationship to what I thought my identity was seated in changing, but also my relationship to my husband was changing because we were no longer sharing that same space of creativity. So there was definitely a moment or, a period of months where I was like, whew, this is a big sacrifice. But then when I reframed that, I was speaking to a friend about it in that difficult time, and she said, it's not a sacrifice, it's an investment. And just that reframing of what this was and that I was not losing something, I was just investing differently, that changed everything for me.
I have goosebumps. It's
Oh,
yeah, it's so true.
mm,
And especially it sounds like it was very demanding, which I can only imagine, that whole period of studying.
mhm.
So on top of going through the study and having your little girl and the transition with your husband, like that creativity that you're talking about, maybe, I don't know, but maybe you were so close to it. It's great to have someone on the outside be like, hey, you're gonna be great. This is
Yeah,
just a shift, you know?
thank goodness for friends.
Yes.
They're so needed.
Yeah. What would you say to someone that is considering maybe at some point, either now or they know that at some point they will need to transition and find another career? What advice would you give them?
I think you just have to feel it in your bones. And it's okay to fail, it's okay to try something and then realize, nope, that's not for me, right? Yeah. That's something I need to remind myself a lot because I'm a very stubborn person. And if I decide to do something, I'm going to do it.
Yes.
But it's important as well to just feel like, okay, I explored that and actually no. What I realized about myself in this process when I was having those identity crises is that passing through it, it's not dance itself that is so important to me. I have an obsessive mind and an obsessive personality. And for like 30 years of my life, I was obsessed with dance. And I managed to shift that obsession into osteopathy at one point. And now that's actually what I dream about and what I think about all the time. And I think that's just like my comfort zone to be super focused on something. And I know, like, that's a weird thing to say because some people can't relate to that. Like, maybe they feel more ADD. But for me, I just need a hyper focus. And osteopathy became my hyper focus. And, so whatever it is, I think you just need to care about it enough to get hyper focused on it, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. And being willing to also at some point transform your identity and being okay to acknowledge that, okay, this part of me is still there, but now it's time to focus on something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that never goes away, that former identity. It's just
Yeah.
changing. Yeah.
Do you miss dancing? And I love that you're slowly making your way back by teaching, and maybe that's going to be it. Maybe that's your entry back into dance. But are you seeing yourself continuing, like, or going back into doing a project with your husband, or no?
Yeah. I mean, I think I miss the community feeling and the joy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. But I feel like I can get that in a classroom setting, So, yeah, or even just on a dance floor, like with a good DJ.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. But the joy is something that you can't find, that's just unparalleled. Like any other profession, I don't think you're gonna, if there's a certain joy in art.
Yep.
You don't.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're still working with people, which there you still have that connection. You're very much hands-on, no pun, with
Yeah.
people. So there's this part of yourself that is probably taken care of in a way.
Yeah, and it's deeper. What I find myself finding pleasure in, I wouldn't say like joy, but I definitely pleasure in having something objective to finally like settle in. Because art is so subjective. So even if it's joyful, I'm always second guessing myself. Is this good? Is it not good? Is this, you know, and
Yes.
with osteopathy, you have a body in front of you and you're changing the structure of this body, and it's telling you very plainly, did your work do something or not? And it felt amazing for me to have this calmness in myself to say, this changed or this did not change, and how can I make it change? So I was not expecting to find that because I thought that osteopaths were like magical wizards and very intuitive people. But it turns out the science is actually quite objective in some ways.
What would you say to someone that is ready to transition but maybe feel a little bit unsure or maybe have some fear?
Hmm. I don't know. Talk therapy, maybe counseling. It's so useful to have someone to talk to. That was one of the services that the Dancer Resource and Transition has for dancers who are questioning if they're ready to transition, is to talk to a counselor, because you can really work out your thoughts and your fears and figure out what it is that's making you want to change and try things out, I think.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a fun fact you want to share?
A fun
Anything else?
fact. A fun fact. Humans and monkeys are the only beings that have clavicles. Fun fact.
Okay. Now I'm thinking, I'm like, how would they work with that? Like, okay,
Yeah.
tell me,
So
tell
like
me more.
dogs and cats, for
Yeah.
instance, they've got a scapula, but they don't have a clavicle. There's nothing tying it down to their frame, their internal frame. So something that makes us unique as humans is that we have collarbones that attach to our sternum. So we can do things with our arms in vertical positions. Yeah, it's just a bunch of muscle holding those arms on your dog.
What a fun career transition. I'm very difficult. I mean, kudos to you. 4.5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I followed you through your journey when you were, sharing that you were doing this, and wow,
Thank
something
you.
else.
And
Yeah.
you too, it's so beautiful to see all of the creation that you are expressing and all the paths that you're exploring throughout your life.
Thank you for listening. If today's story made a difference, share it with a fellow artist and creative friend. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow me on my socials for tips and tricks to navigate your career change. Until next time, I will see you in the next episode.